All right, guys. So this is a snap-on Wheeltronic lift. I think it's like a 6000E or something is the model number. I can figure that out after. I've had this lift for probably 10, 15 years, probably more than that, probably closer to 15. I bought it used. It was used in a repair shop where I happen to be friends with the people that own it, and they had it in their inspection bay. They used it a long time there. They decided they didn't need it anymore, so they sold it to me very reasonably. When I got it, it had a lot of surface rust on it and stuff going kind of crappy on it, just from use and being in a shop. I repainted it. I wire wheeled this whole thing down, repainted the whole thing when I got it. Didn't really replace any parts. I've done one of the hydraulic hoses since then, this little short one. And there is a power unit that's just like a typical lift. This lift will pick up 6,000 pounds. It's considered what's called a mid-rise lift, a scissor lift. So it goes up probably, I think it's about 36 inches, somewhere around there. So obviously this garage we're not in the barn right now. This is the garage on my house. Before I built the barn, I worked out of this garage, out of this bay here. After building the barn, my wife started parking in here, and she parks on top of this. So it's been probably 6 or 7 New England winters of dripping salt and water all over this thing all winter long. And you can see it's not rotting, but it's definitely scaly. I just painted it last time with a Rust-Oleum paint, and you can see that's probably a lot of what's peeling off here is the paint with some rust underneath it. I figured it was time to move it over to the barn. It's obviously, you can see the rust mark on the floor where it's been. It's been here for a bit, not used. I know the cylinder probably needs to be rebuilt. It will lift the lift, but it upon rising, it actually out of the weep hole will squirt some fluid out at the same time. So I want to get it over to the barn. I want to get this thing all wire wheeled down and get a fresh coat of paint on it, get it operational again, and we can start using it on the cars we're working on until I guess finally get off my ass and buy a 2-post, which I don't know when that'll happen. But for now, this thing works great for what I work on for Volkswagens. So I want to get it back in service again. The problem is my house is about 100 feet from the barn, and pulling this over there is a difficult thing. My tractor is down at the moment, so I can't pick it up with the tractor and move it. So what I've ended up doing is I just got a piece of wood across here with some casters on it. I have no idea if these are going to make it. I need to pull this out on the road and then up the second driveway. So we'll see if it's going to make it. As long as it falls apart in the second driveway and not in the street, I'm happy with it. My plan is to just run a chain off the front and kind of hitch it up to my truck and hopefully just drive slow and get it over there. So once we get over there, I'll bring you back and let you know how we made out. All right, guys, we got a little tired. Got the lift into the barn. I got that piece of wood caster axle thing off, and I put it on car dollies. There's a car dolly in the front, 2 car dollies in the back. I've got my hydraulic hose hooked back up to the unit, the hydraulic unit. I've got a piece of cardboard because I know this is going to drip a little fluid as I go up. And we'll see if, what I'm hoping I can raise and lower this on these car dollies. It'll just make it easier to start the cleanup process of like scraping this down, sanding it and painting it. And I'll probably end up having to, do this in a few different stages, I guess. Paint part of it, clean up and paint another part. The problem is this unit weighs 900 pounds. Just the way it sits, it's 900 pounds. Then you've got the hydraulic unit separate from that. So it's a pretty heavy thing. So it's pretty exhausting and tough to move around. So I'm going to throw this up and hopefully everything will kind of slide around and not fall off anything. All right. So it does go up a little higher. I'm not actually even on the lock yet. It probably goes up, I don't know, another couple of inches. Because I'm 3 inches down from where that locks. This particular lift, these are kind of weird. They only have, get you over there. They only have one lock. So there's one hydraulic ram, and then this just has one position that this locks in on the top of this plate back here. And then when you go high enough, this little plastic pin will kick out, and when you come back down, it'll lower it. It would be nice if this lift had several locking positions, but it doesn't. The nice thing it does have, and I've always liked about it, is these arms, when they're not all rusted, can slide up and down on this, and these are jammed up in there too. So these will flip up, and I have some truck adapters that can go on this too. I have seen, not since I've owned it, but when the shop I got it from had it, I have seen this lift with an F250 on it. I'm not, it's a little, to me, it's a little too unstable side to side to put something that heavy on it, but it will support that weight. It is a 6,000 pound capacity, or 65 maybe, say, let's call it 6,000. But obviously this is going to need a lot of love to get me back in service here and get it so that we can put a car on it and work on it. But this is probably, with the couple inches higher it goes, it's higher than it probably would be if it was on the ground. I mean, obviously I'm 4 to 6 inches up being on these dollies. But the lift goes up another few inches. So I believe it's a 36 or 38 or something, somewhere around that rise. So pretty good for a Volkswagen anyway, and in other vehicles that you don't need to be under the middle of the chassis or anything too much. They work great for that. So, all right, so I'm gonna get some stuff shuffled around in here so I can get this in. All right. So I've got two of the arms off here. You can see this is kind of how they work. They've got a pin going through this section, goes through this part of the arm, and you can flip it up, flip the small one up. Here's all the hardware, big bolt, big lock washer. You can see it's kind of an oval in there. Two of them come off nice and easy. The two that would have been towards the front are pretty much totally frozen. I've got this one freed up to the point that the small piece will move, but the big one is actually seized onto the pin. It's still a little hot. I've got the cotter pin out back here, and I think my next step is I need to get this off. Before I start taking this arm off, right now it's working like a vise almost for me where it's holding this thing on. I'm going to see if I can get the air hammer, and I'm going to see if I can knock this pin out, and I'm hoping that it'll come through this and I won't have to replace the pin because it's pretty rusted in there. All right, I got my air hammer set up. It's going to be real loud, so I'm just going to kind of mute out a lot of this, but I'm just trying to drive this pin straight through and hopefully free it up in here. I may have to heat it up a few times too. All right, so obviously you can see that's a bit of work. This pin's still hot. Halfway through this, I had to file this edge, and what I did is I took the air hammer, if you imagine this is the pin, and I whacked the pin in, I pushed the pin back out, and went back and forth a few times just to kind of free up the center and get it free from this block is where it was hung up on. But doing that, you kind of smash in the end of the pin. So I had to end up just taking the file and cleaning up the edge all the way around so that it would actually fit through once I got it freed up. All right. And then your bolt here is literally just a 1.5 inch socket hanging onto a huge bolt. We'll get under it. And she's on there too. So that's probably going to take a little bit of heat too. Yeah, my impact gun's set on high. I think this battery is relatively charged. So for that not to walk off there, it's because the everything's just kind of a little rusted. It's going to be this way on both this side and the other side, I bet. Like I said, the two backs are easy. We got the forearms off. All the garbage parts are sitting over here. Everything's kind of still hot on the last two. So that's it on getting those off. I'm probably going to start scraping this thing down. I'll bring you back periodically as I get going. It's probably not too interesting going through and you know, getting the crap off this thing, but I will bring you back and show you how we go. Here's the pile that's fallen off already, so just from banging it around. So there's going to be a lot more. All right, guys, so I figured I'd bring you back and show you this. So I am scraping this just with a putty knife. And for the most part, you can get a lot of this loose scale off, but you end up with some of these sections here. So this is, what I'm taking off is basically paint that rust built up underneath, and now the rust is kind of expanding. Like I don't know, if you're in an area that rusts, you'll understand this, because this is what basically all of our pickup trucks look like after 10 years or so. The frames on them all end up looking like this with this big hunky stuff on it. So what I'm going to use to get this off is this tool, and this is called a needle scaler. And it's called that because it's got these pins sticking out the end, and it works almost like an air hammer, except with all these little needles jumping around. And these work really good for heavy steel. This is, I mean, as you can see, this is a thick piece of steel. This is a 1-inch piece of plate. This inner part isn't quite so thick, but it's a channel. It comes up, over, and then back down, and it's probably 1/4-inch steel all on its own. So this scaling, while it looks horrible that you're taking a lot off of here, it's really not like you're thinning this out by that much. You know, it is, the rust did thin this metal out some, but it's not going to really affect this piece of material all that much because of how thick it is. So when you use a needle scaler, this is one of these tools that's a pretty violent tool. It throws all over the place. This isn't a tool to use, like if you're working on a car doing auto body, this isn't something that you're going to use to do, you know, body panels or anything like that. It's pretty much on a car. The only use you really have of this is maybe on a frame. And even then you got to be careful, because most frames aren't, you know, this is a 1/4-inch thick piece of steel, possibly thicker. I don't know. It's pretty thick here. There's no way this needle scaler is going to go through this unless this thing had rotted totally in half. With a pickup truck or, you know, a heavier vehicle, this is going to probably rip through sheet metal or anything else. So it's not a tool for that job. But if you ever find yourself doing some like heavy, thick steel like this, I figured I'd give you a quick look at how well it works. And you can see I went over this pretty well. You can kind of start picking up the edge, but that's about it. So you hit it with this. And as you can see, that's gonna really clean this up. I got another little piece there, a little piece left here. This whole corner is like that. The majority of this came off without it, but I found a few spots that were really tough to work with. So I figured I'd show you this, and I'm gonna probably use it periodically through this whole thing, because even the red arms you see down here, these are all 1/4-inch wall tubing. So they're very, very thick tubing. Using something like this on it isn't gonna hurt anything. You can see this one back here has a lot of scale on the inside edge. That's gonna all need to be cleaned up before this can get painted. But I figured I'd bring you back, show you, just a real quick about a needle scaler, and, maybe when you wanna use one, or if you ever even need one. But, a lot of people see them and don't really know what they're for, so I figured I'd show you. I've got this started cleaning up. I got that side all cleaned up good. We're getting in deep now. So the way this thing is held together is there's a pin on either side, on that side and on this side. And the whole thing, the whole top piece, this whole big metal piece is held on by those 2 pins. And then on the other side, way down there on the other side, the other arm has a roller in it. And it just kind of rolls so that the base can stay flat. Flat this way while the arms basically come closer together. This arm comes closer to this arm as it goes up. Not touching obviously, but it rides on a bearing down that way. As I'm cleaning this up, I'm finding it would be easier to get to the underside if I took this off, or at least I think that's what I think that's how it's going to be. I've pulled the pin on this side. This is what the pin looks like. It's just got a cotter pin in the end, and then it's just a big roll pin, or not a roll pin, a big steel pin. And I can probably show you this side here. So I've got the pin out there. You can see where it's supposed to go in. But you can see there's a lot of peeling paint and everything under here. I'd like to just get this thing cleaned up fairly good and not have to do this again and not park salty vehicles on it. So I'm on this last pin. I'm going to pull this pin out, and then I've got to figure out how to get this thing off here. The whole lift weighs 900 pounds, so I'm assuming this top plate's probably a good, maybe even half of that, probably, at least, probably 400 pounds. So I think the engine hoist should be able to lift it up okay. I may lower it down and pick it up with the engine hoist and then put it over off to the side on another set of rollers, of these car rollers, and kind of go from there. I don't actually have a total plan for that, but I think it would be easier to clean up these arms and everything else if this top piece wasn't there. And because the pins move, I figure it's worth a shot. Worst that happens is I can't pick it up, and I put the pins back in and keep working the way I have been. So we'll see how it goes. All right, so I got the table, let's call it, the top portion, strapped up to the engine hoist. Engine hoist is all the way out. This one's rated for, I think, 1,000 pounds. Yeah, 1,000 pounds at this length. So the whole lift weighs 900, so we're definitely not over that, only taking just the top plate off. I have no idea if the way I've got this connected, I've got it straight to the end and then through here, hoping this will stop side to side and down on this side, and that'll just kind of hold up that end. We'll see. Gonna crank it up and see if it's gonna flop all over or if it'll pick it up easy. We'll see how it goes. All right, so we're obviously a little heavy down this end and lighter up that end, just the way I got the straps on it probably. I don't see anything that's gonna cause us too much of a problem, so I'm gonna see if I can pull this off. And then I think the biggest problem here is I've got the legs of the lift kind of in the way now to put this down on dollies. So I'm gonna have to figure out how I wanna drop this down onto a dolly. And like I said, this is really just get this off. I can clean it a little better underneath. Hopefully I can kind of flip it up on end and clean underneath better. But it'll give me access to cleaning this up. So this end, this is frozen. So this end has rollers on both sides here. This one's still rolling. This one's frozen. It's funny because this wheel is frozen too, and the other one's fine. So I've got more rust on this end, but look at this thing, that's rough. I'm gonna have to hammer that pin out and clean all that up, get it painted, and then put it back together. But I'm glad I took this off because of that roller. I wouldn't have necessarily known that roller was stuck. But it's good to get everything. I can get this apart, hopefully more than this, and then really get stuff cleaned up. But if nothing more, I can at least clean up and paint this red portion where it's only joined at the pin right here. There's a pin going across on each side that's a greasable pin. Other than the roll pin that holds it in, I'm fairly confident I could get that pin out if I can get the roll pin out. And then it would be two separate legs, I guess let's call it. But that's kind of where I'm at. Let me get this dangerous thing that's hanging here back on the ground on some rollers, and I'll bring you back. All right, guys, well, that actually worked out. I've got two 2x6s on either end on a single car dolly, and it seems to roll fine. I can get it out of the way. I can do whatever I need to do. Mainly, I just wanted to be able to bring it outside and grind it down more, too, because I'm starting to make a mess in the barn here. Should leave this significantly lighter. It's probably still pretty heavy. It almost seems, it's lighter. So it's, it's significantly lighter. Maybe I cut the weight in half between these two things, which would be ideal. It'll just make it easier to handle it, move it around, clean everything. And this part's supposed to be black. That's red. I'm probably going to go back to the colors that it was. It used to have somewhere in here on the side, it's got I don't even know if you can still see it. Somewhere in there deep, there's a Snap-on logo, whatever, big sticker on there. I may or may not, obviously this is all gonna come off. Last time I repainted it, I painted right over it. I may, if I can get good paint on this and actually have it look decent, maybe I'll recreate that sticker and put it back on there. And I'm sure I don't want to order it because I definitely don't want to pay whatever that thing costs for that sticker. But so either way, we'll do something with it. But we'll get this thing sanded down more, get some more grinding done on it. I've been using the needle scaler on that quite a bit to get the heavy stuff off. This side, believe it or not, is actually not that bad. It's just got areas like this section here that are pretty rusty, but it's not quite as bad as this top table has been cleaning. So I'll get back after it, and like I said, I'll bring you back as I go. Nobody wants to sit here and watch people chisel rust off stuff. Here's where I'm at. I got the rollers out of both sides. The one that moved came out easy. Let me see. Here's the part number on it. If by some chance one of you has the same lift and is looking for one of these, might help you out. That one's still good. Pin came out. They have snap rings on either side of them that basically were disintegrated. There's supposed to be on here a groove on either side for that to go into, which not really left there. So I'm probably going to try to source new pins, or may have to make them. The opposite side, as you can see here, did not work out at all. It's a needle bearing. You can see inside there now. I ended up, the problem is this is moving right now, but it's actually frozen in there. I couldn't get it beyond that point. And I think it's just the pin is either bent or it's just buildup on there. But I ended up having to cut the pin in multiple spots to get it to fit out of this hole right here, basically, out of here. Beat up the end a little bit on both sides, but it should file down okay. And kind of go from there. So now where I'm at here is my next thing that I want to try to do is these rollers down here. This one moves, that one's frozen. I'd like to free those up because that's what actually rolls on the floor. And when it's frozen, it just drags and it actually like kind of grinds up the concrete rather as it's going. So that's my next part here. It's got a roll pin in this outside edge, and then I believe the pin pushes out that way. So I'm going to try to see if I can get that roll pin out and if we can get the piece out. This roller has a bearing on either side according to the parts diagram. So I don't know if I'm going to lay this on its side or what I'm going to do yet, but we'll start looking at it and try to get something figured out. All right, well, not at all an ideal situation, but I've got both of these pieces free to get some kind of a situation back in there. I ended up having to cut the shaft because this thing is totally seized in the bearings. And unfortunately, it seems like the races go down in. I don't know how hard those are going to be to get out, but I can probably machine them out or something if I have to. And I don't know what bearing number that is because I have nothing on there to reference. So this is where I'm at. I was, be honest with you, I was kind of close to giving up on this whole thing because I've got hours into trying to get this thing apart, and then finally gave up and decided to just cut it because that inner race is just totally jammed up on there. So we'll see if I can clean this up, see if I can find some bearings and a new pin before I get any further than I am. There's no point in trying to get the other one out if I can't find the parts. So that's where I'm at. Not great. All right, guys. So I didn't show it, but I had races in here with what was left of the bearing. I tried pressing these out. I tried heating this and pressing them out. Nothing seemed to want to get them out. There's barely a lip in there. So it's very difficult to actually get in there from the backside and push one out. I didn't have anything that was the exact right size that would actually catch this tiny lip without falling through the middle. So as you can see, possibly from this mark right inside here, what I ended up having to do is I took the plasma cutter and attempted to slice the bearing race on a couple sides. You can see there's 3 marks inside here, so that I could cut a piece of the bearing race out and then pop the remaining part of the race out. Obviously that leaves me with a gouge in a few spots. So now, and I've got some slag down inside here. So this whole thing's going to need to be cleaned up. Luckily, while I was taking this apart, I didn't realize that it was even there, but this bearing actually had a rubber seal on either side. I was able, between the two of them, there's no way I'm going to be able to show you this, but I was able to look. Whenever you're working with this type of a bearing, like I showed you on this one, where this is still a clean one, and the opposite one is this garbage one that fell apart, but this was the other one. I was able to get a number off here, like I showed you. This one, I was able to get the brand and everything. This bearing's so clean. What ended up happening with these is I was able to grab the number off the seal. And like I said, I don't know if you'll be able to see that. It's 1630 something. I'll put the right number in. I needed to use a magnifying glass to actually see this. And what I ended up doing, it's a good thing I had this, because without this seal, if I look this up on multiple websites that sell parts for this lift, this bearing, everybody had them listed for $55 a piece, which, I mean, that's a fair amount. $110 for the bearings just for this one wheel seems kind of crazy. But with that part number off the bearing, and like I said, most bearings will have a number, so be careful when you're taking apart stuff like this. What ended up happening, though, is I was able to use that number and cross it a few times, and I was able to go by dimensions, too. A lot of the time you can go by dimensions, but it's hard to go by dimensions when your dimensions look like this, and all the little balls come rolling out everywhere, and it's just this mess. I was able to pick up these bearings. I'll put the link to where I got them, just in case anybody's interested. I think I paid it was under $5 a piece for these bearings. I want to say it was like 3 and change, or maybe it was $10. I don't even remember, but I'll put the link in there. It was much cheaper than $55 a bearing. I think my entire order, I ordered 4 of these, and I think the entire order was like $50 with shipping or something along the lines of that. But I'll put the link to it of where I got a new one of these and these with the part numbers and everything. Just in case you got this lift and you're doing the same thing, or you run into another Wheeltronic lift that uses the same bearing. So this has got to get cleaned up, and then this bearing's got to get pressed into here. But it is the exact same bearing. It's right down to the part number on it, everything. And maybe I can see it on this one. I think I'm my vision's not as good as it used to be, so it's hard to actually see stuff. I think it's a 1630 2BS, I think that says. And basically the 2BS on a bearing, sometimes you'll see them, it won't be a 2, it'll be a different letter or something. I'm sorry, it's 2RS. What that stands for is both sides are a rubber seal, is what that stands for. So this is a 1630 bearing, and both sides have a rubber seal on them. So 2RS is what that stands for. Just a little tip on bearings. May not be useful, but it's something I've kind of picked up along the way. Just basically being in a situation where I'm not paying $55 for this bearing. So you have to kind of make do and figure it out. There's plenty of catalogs, parts catalogs, bearing catalogs, whatever online that you can find the correct number if you put a little effort in and do the work, whether it's measuring inside, outside, and width, or whatever you're going to do. But anyway, that's where I'm at with this. I'm going to throw this in the sandblast cabinet and just get all this garbage off the outside. All right, guys. So I'm sanding on this thing. I got all the, I got it tipped up on its side, obviously. I got all the real loose stuff off with the needle scaler. And now I've got the electric DA with 40 and 60 grit, just trying to get it down somewhat smooth. This lift's going to be used. It's going to get spray paint and overspray and all kinds of crap all over it. So I'm not really worried about how smooth it is necessarily. You can probably see the brush strokes in here from the last time I painted it. But what I do want to do is just get a coat of paint on it so it's clean looking. I figured I'd bring you back just to give you a quick tip while I'm working on this. So when I sand something like this, I like to have a shop vac just ready to suck up as much of the crap that the sander isn't picking up and hopefully get less of it in this building. So what I have to hold the hose in place, because as you can see, it just kind of leaves. I just got a piece of, I just got a clamp. It's like a, I don't know, 3-inch clamp maybe. And then this is a magnet on the bottom. I punch a hole in the clamp. I screw the magnet down, and then the magnet holds solid on whatever piece of metal you're working on. You can take this and slide it onto, you don't even have to really tighten it down, just by hand. Slide it onto there and magnet this thing on, and it's going to hold it in place while you're sanding, instead of trying to hold it yourself or, you know, twist it around something and have it fall on the floor. Get yourself a just a cheap clamp and a random magnet off of Amazon or, you know, hardware store or whatever, and throw this thing on there, and then you're all set, and you can kind of direct it to where you need it to go and suck up all the crap before it ends up on all your cars and the floor and everywhere else in the place. So here's how I made out with this side. As I showed you, I got the wheel out of here, big mess, lots of time, 3.5 hours cutting that thing out and getting everything apart. The other side wasn't totally frozen. It was stuck, but it wasn't totally frozen. So what I've done is I've cleaned this up. I've sprayed it, and then just kept rotating it. And it's rotating really nice now, and it has no play in it. I did pull out, let me show you on this one because the lift's sideways. I did pull out the pin that was through here, and I started to, you can see there's a dimple here because I started to try to use the air hammer to push this pin out, and I quickly found it's the same problem. The inner races on the bearings are frozen to this shaft. So I have decided to give up on this one. Bearings feel tight, it rolls nicely. It always has since I've had this lift. As I mentioned, this one was always frozen. I'd spray it, it would work for a while, then it would freeze up and drag across the floor. And with this style lift, when they drag across the floor, over time, 1, the steel wheel gets a flat spot in it. 2, it actually grinds up your concrete, and you actually get like a slot in the concrete where this wheel's just been dragging. And that's been the problem with this one pretty much the entire time I've had this. I don't know if I mentioned, I bought this lift used, so it wasn't like it was in perfect shape, brand new when I got it. It was probably a 15-year-old lift when I got it, and now I've had it for like, I don't even know, 17, 18 years, something like that. So it's a fairly old lift at this point, you know what I mean? But we've got this one freed up good. It's spinning. I'm going to paint everything around it. I'll put some black paint on the wheel that's probably going to rub off when it runs across anyway. I'm debating taping everything off and just sandblasting this surface. I did hit it with the needle scaler, so it is clean. There's no lumps in it or anything, and it really doesn't have too many like pock marks. So I think it'll roll fine, but we'll see what we can do for some kind of a coating or something that'll kind of hopefully hold up a little bit and not mar up the floor at all is the big thing. So we got most of the lift kind of sanded down pretty good. I'm still going to hit it with the DA on this side, but I've got all the real tough stuff off. I noticed I'm in a spot here, and I don't know if you can see in here. Let's see if we can get some light in there. There is a pile of crap down in there, if you can see it. It's like that in both of the tubes. I've already cleaned this tube out, and you can see you go straight down to there's like a metal tube basically that is, let's see if we can get this to focus. There's a metal tube down in there that's welded, and you can, on that side, you can see the pin that goes through the two halves. That's welded in the middle of this tube. When this lift is back this way upright, these two pieces are always up. If the lift goes up, these go up. They never get lower than the other end. So I think what happens is all the scale and all me banging around on it and everything else over the years has just kind of settled down in there. And there's no place to get it out on the other end. The other end is a welded tube. I obviously want to try to get as much of it as I can out, and then what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to spray down in here once this is all painted with some like a lanolin, like the stuff that you undercoat trucks with, stuff like that, just to kind of keep the inside of this from scaling up any worse than it is. Problem is, I can't get a vacuum cleaner to fit in there. So what I've done, and this is usually what I do on other frames and things like that, I've got a piece, usually I like to use PVC because it's flexible, but this is a piece of 3/4 inch EMT, so electrical metal tubing. So this EMT I've got taped to my shop vac, and literally you can take this, I got a piece that'll fit down in there, and I'll go down as far as I can, and then I'm going to throw the vacuum on, and you'll hear all the crap coming out. And I just go back and forth until I get it clean like I did the other side. All right, so there you go. You can see down in there. There's still a bunch of scale on the sides, but you can see down to that spacer that's basically in there. It's just a piece of tubing that's welded in. And I've got all the loose stuff out. So I think that's going to be pretty good. There is space on the other side of that piece of tubing, like further down here into this pipe. I can't tell if there's stuff in there because I have no way to see beyond that. So this is probably the best I can do. If I was to separate these two halves, I could tip this up on end and kind of shake it out. You could, I suppose if you had a way to lift this all the way up, you could do the same thing. I have decided I'm not going to separate these. You can see there's a big roll pin in here and a washer. Then there's the pin on the other side. This pin goes straight through. I have a feeling that that is not going to want to go all the way through. It is a greasable pin. I'm a little worried about cutting it out of there. You can see here, that's the, hopefully you can. That's the grease fitting. So there's a grease fitting on the inside, and then this roll pin and washer on the outside. I just don't think, for me in this case, nothing's loose here. Nothing feels worn. I'm not gonna bust this apart. Basically for fear that I'm gonna have to cut the pin the same as I did with this wheel and everything else. And it's tight, it moves fine, it rotates the way it's supposed to. So I'm just gonna paint around it just like I did, 15 plus years ago when I first got this lift and I cleaned it all up. So that's where I'm at right now. I keep moving forward with this thing, trying to get it done so that I can get back to working on car projects instead of car tools or, items to work on car projects. But that's where I'm at. I figured I'd just bring you back and show you maybe a little tip of if you need to vacuum out inside of a frame or a piece of tubing of sorts, but your vacuum's too fat. That's just a quick, easy way. And like I said, a piece of PVC, like the flexible stuff, that's, you know, maybe an inch inside diameter is usually pretty good to get in places like that. But so we got the frame of this all sanded down. I've gone over it with the DA and taken off all the rough stuff. And then what I did after that, last night, I hit all of this. I wiped it down with some phosphoric acid. This is what the container looks like if you're interested. And what phosphoric acid does is it will eat the rust, and you can see pretty good on this side how it's kind of turned all this pitted rust into like a black kind of color. In this area, you can see a little bit more rust still, because what'll happen with phosphoric acid if you leave it on too thick, which it did around this washer and stuff, it'll kind of foam up to like a white crusty stuff that you got to knock down before you put any paint on it. So I hit that with a wire brush just to kind of get rid of the junk that was on it. But you can see it does a good job of kind of protecting it. You may see on the market, you'll see paints or like a primer or like a prep that says that it converts rusty metal into black primer, is what it claims to do. What those products are is, I don't know what else is in them, but basically what it is the main ingredient is phosphoric acid. And you can see when it hits, you can see it pretty good here in the light where it's kind of black looking. That's basically what it is. So I'm not saying you shouldn't buy those products, but I don't personally buy them. I just use phosphoric acid out of a gallon jug. I put it in a spray bottle. This is just I'm just reusing, you know, an old spray bottle. I spray it on lightly and then I wipe it down, basically with just a rag or a paper towel, just to kind of put it on thin. And you'll see this go on, and, almost instantly, you'll see, especially on the clean metal, you'll see it clean up real quick. And then this rusty stuff will take a little bit longer to turn black, but it's usually within minutes or so. And then what I do is, after I make sure I don't put it so thick that it gets the white crust, which like down here, you can see it's a little bit crusty, right in here, all this white. I'll wire brush that before I put any paint on it. But basically, this is ready to be painted. I degreased it before I put the phosphoric acid on, and then the acid kind of helps with that a little bit too. But it also takes off any kind of like loose powdery rust or anything like that. So my next step here is I'm going to start priming all the bare metal areas, and specifically all these rough areas. And I'm going to use the Master Coat. You've seen me use this before. This is my favorite rust paint, let's call it. And I'll kind of go through a little bit and show you it going on. This just brushes on, and it smooths out pretty good. It ends up, what it is it's a silver paint, and it's got like a little bit of, I guess it's crushed aluminum that's in it. And that will fill in a lot of these pock marks. This is pretty deep, so it's not going to get all of them. But you can imagine what this would look like on a frame of a pickup truck or an older car that's got a full frame. It'll smooth it out pretty good. So let me get started with that, and I'll bring you back. All right, guys. So here's the coat of Master Series paint. You can see what the texture kind of looks like. I had a little bit of trouble with paintbrushes. The current batch of paintbrushes I have apparently is losing bristles all over the place. So that's a kind of a tough thing. You're picking out bristles as you're brushing this stuff on. You can see this arm. This was the rustiest one. You can see it's still pretty pockmarked. I could do a couple coats of this and that would fill in and kind of smooth out some of that. But realistically, it's like I've said, it's a lift that I'm going to use to pick up cars. I'm going to be welding on cars, painting on cars, all kinds of stuff using this lift. So I'm not really concerned with this lift being a showpiece. I just want it to function well, and I want it to not drop rusty hunks all over the floor while I'm working. So this is going to smooth it out good enough. I'm going to go over this with a, I'm probably not even going to do a second coat. I'm actually probably just going to go over this with like a red Rust-Oleum paint or something. I got to see what I've got and see if I got to pick some up and start getting these arms painted. Once I get the underside of all these arms painted, I can flip this back over, and I'm sure I missed some spots up underneath areas and around edges. But basically, I want to get all the part that faces the floor painted red, put like 2 coats on that, and then flip it back up and finish everything up. You'll notice I didn't paint around these brackets that hold the piston. They are still pretty dirty and need to be, you know, wire wheeled or brushed or whatever to get that dirt and scaling paint off. That ram has to come out of there to be rebuilt. So I'm going to wait until I have this thing upright. We'll paint everything we can, and I'll finish off these areas in here, these little tabs here and the tabs up here, and all of this will get painted, you know, as this is apart. I'll put the lift up and kind of hold it up while I kind of clean all that out and get everything painted and get the ram rebuilt. I'll either try to do it myself or have a company do it. I'm likely going to try to do it myself, and we'll see how it works. I've never done one, so I have no idea how easy or difficult it is. It's not bent, it's just leaking, so really I don't imagine it's horrible to do, but we'll give it a shot. I'm kind of interested to see if I can do it. So that's pretty much it. I just want to bring you back and kind of show you how this stuff laid out. And like you can see, there's some red areas. That's totally fine. It's nothing went through to the metal, and that red was on there good, so that's okay. But anyway, that's it for tonight. I'll get this thing, you know, start painting it up red, and we'll go from there.